Hi friends, welcome again to Soaring Through Chaos. And the reason we do these talks is to really share about life, understand where we are going as humanity. Of course, we are in the middle of a very interesting and difficult time, the pandemic, and that has led us to, in some ways, connected all of us as a global family. There are challenges on the health front in terms of even mortality in some cases. There are challenges in terms of economics, jobs, and businesses shutting down, and it has led to a lot of divisiveness, even difficulties. But every once in a while, I run into people or I've known people who have really tried to bring things together. And one of them is this young man, Anand Parikh. I got to know about 4 years ago. Anand, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how we met and your journey?
Um, so how we met has been, of course, you know my father, and even when you traveled back to India from the US, trying to explore things over here, uh, that is how we came in contact. And after that, you have seen how my journey has been, and through one reason or the other, I've also had a chance to know what you have been doing. So I think we have evolved past that
Well, but I mean,
path
I
of
was
friendship.
really fascinated that you were doing something innovative and actually try to productize it, this biomedical design. And can you tell us about how you started doing it and what the journey has been like? And this is in India. We met in Ahmedabad, we met in Baroda, and then we literally drove to Ahmedabad, which are
Yes,
cities in Gujarat and
yes.
one of the more innovative states in India, a business state in India. And I was very fascinated that somebody was doing something in a field that I had done a little bit of work in. So tell us about your entrepreneurial journey also.
Okay. Um, so I have been working on a surgical instrument which makes a complex surgical process easy. Just to keep it, more broad. And my journey started with a master's project at IIT Madras, and unlike many college projects that we usually make a good prototype, good presentation, and then it sits on the shelf forever. I wanted to explore what it takes to convert an idea to an actual product, and I wanted to see this in a surgery um, on an actual patient. So that was the purpose with which I had started this journey, and over the past 4 or 5 years, I have been able to achieve that. So
Yeah, yeah. So one thing that's interesting to me, Anand, is that in India, most of the product companies even are a replica of what's happening elsewhere. So it's like
right,
Indianizing it or bringing these designs to India and making it for the Indian market. What you were doing was quite different from that. You were actually inventing something which could be even
right,
patentable, and you were taking an innovation or market risk as well as the risk of a new product, which is extremely,
right.
I find it very rare in India, especially when they're manufactured product. So please describe us your journey. What happened after you selected this product and how did things shape up?
Okay. So, firstly, this wasn't an independent invention. Right? It was done by a group of people. So, one of the key contributors was a plastic surgeon who had deep insight into the field of plastic surgery, and that is how he also had an idea of what change can be brought to the field of plastic surgery and the instrumentation. And my role in this as an inventor was to apply the fundamentals of design, come up with new concepts, and then try to solve a problem, solve a clinical need that was brought to me. So that is how the invention took place. And while that happened during my master's project, we are also able to raise certain funds. I had just a year before, I had done an internship, which um, uh, it's called Stanford-India Biodesign, and it is a collaboration between Stanford University, AIMS, New Delhi, and IIT Delhi, along with the government of India, where they um, put people from different backgrounds, engineering, industrial design, and medicine, and then team them up and then put them in a hospital ward. And then we come up with ideas and solve clinical needs. And then what I really learned over there beyond the design was how to raise funds and how to um, build a product from a conceptual stage, and then what are the other ways that you can explore in order to take it further. And that is what interested me, so that is what drove me to take this product further, and we are able to raise some funds in grant. So when my college got over, I had two options. One option was to take a job, and another option was to pursue this further, because there was some flexibility for um, um, there were funds available for this. So I know that um, at some point in my life, I want to um, I like making things that are useful. I know it's a bit vague to hear, but uh, um, I would want to create things that have a long-term or more meaningful impact on lives of people. So that is how my journey had started, and I thought that doing this, taking this path of product development might give me a chance to make something that is valuable and that is that can be out there in the world, which sort of started with myself, and that is what drove me as a person. And of course, there were availability of funds, and it was a new process. It was something that was um, quite offbeat, as I might say. So that is what interested me in this, and as a journey of exploration, I took it forward, and I just wanted to see what happens.
Yeah, and I've been more of a witness or observer on your journey. And it's fascinating because you're doing something which is like super specialized, but it can be extended into many forms of surgery, right? The design you came up with. And again, it involves intellectual property rights, making sure the rights are done. Then there is a regulatory aspect of it, which
Yes,
is to make sure that if it was in the US, I would think it would be 410K. There may be similar regulations in India.
yes,
And so there's this whole complexity. And it's really a joy to have seen you initially fresh out of school, coming up with great ideas, and now being more realistic. And it's really fascinating. This is what I see often when I work with, or anybody works with me in the Silicon Valley in San Francisco Bay Area. We're used to this. But it's
right.
what do you think would have been your chances of success if you would have in a place like San Francisco compared to how you feel that you're now in Ahmedabad or anywhere in India?
Right. I think firstly, success is a very subjective term. So, what I started with as a mission, I have succeeded in doing that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if you consider that, okay, if you have a traditional, uh, a more a common definition of a startup and product innovation that make millions and billions and all, I think an ecosystem would definitely play a big role in that. But
yes,
for my
yes.
journey, the ecosystem was very different. My ecosystem was to build a network within the plastic surgery domain in India. It was not necessarily based out of Ahmedabad. In fact, during the last 5 years, I have lived in Chennai, Pune, as well as Ahmedabad. So my work was more spread across different places in India, different hospitals, and I spent time with different surgeons who also liked innovation, and they also supported me in a big way. So um, I think if it really depends on what your mission is.
Yes, yes. I mean, that's a
Um,
very mature way of looking at it because often everybody looks at just the numbers. So in your case, you got most of these grants without many strings attached from different, you got a huge amount of money, even in dollars. I think it's like $500,000, isn't it? Several crores of rupees, isn't it?
yes, yes.
And can you tell us about how you got them? These are like very competitive awards from what I remember.
Yes, I mean, it has been a tough journey. The successes that I have got in raising the funds have also been, uh, after climbing a big stair of failed proposals, and there have been numerous competitions that I have written to, and in some we did not get selected in the first round itself. Some applications went through to a certain level, and then uh, in competitions like these, there are a few schemes by the government of India. There's a Department of Biotechnology which is very active in funding startups and product ideas that are related to the field of medical devices and biotechnology. So I was able to crack a couple of those grants, and apart from that, I also explored venues like corporate social responsibility grants, which is a concept in India where large corporates share some of their profit to fund activities that are related to social development. So that was a different journey. So even within grants, there have been different ways in which programs had to be approached, and it was a good learning journey.
Yeah, yeah. So, Anand, what I found interesting was like when I started my entrepreneurial journey, it was all about this, the excitement of innovating something. And
Hmm.
also, then later it was the how do I find customers and how do I make a profit? I'm sure you've gone
Yes.
through all this. But probably the most interesting thing for me is how it changes the entrepreneur, how it changes you as a human being, and
Hmm.
what have
Hmm.
you learned about life through the process of starting your own company. There are times when you're alone, there are times when you have a small group of people, there are times when you have to literally fight over IP rights and all kinds of things. What have you learned about
Yes.
life itself, if I may ask?
Okay, that's a very broad question, but um, I can say that it transforms a person at every stage. The journey of an entrepreneur, and especially the responsibility that an entrepreneur carries, is not necessarily restricted to, say, a job profile. So I can say that I started as an engineer, a design consultant. Then I moved my role to a product designer. Then from that I went to sourcing and vendor development, intellectual property, and from that I transferred my role into someone who raised funds. Then a project manager, and after that I became a sales and marketing person. I did on ground sales. Then I went to become someone who recruited salespeople, and and then say a hiring manager. Or I mean, the journey has been uh, throwing new problem statements at me, and what I really like about it is that I think that I deep inside I like solving problems. I see myself as a problem solver and not a particular problem solver, not solver of a particular problem, but I think that I can develop my abilities in different directions, and that is what this journey has been about for me. And
Yeah, yeah. Please go ahead.
and apart from that, I think it has made me much more patient than before. I have definitely learned more on the communications aspect. I have started learning how uh, it has opened me up to perspectives of different people in different positions of authority. For example, there could be administrators, bureaucrats. Customers have their own mentality. Different customers have different mentality. So it has exposed me to many points of view.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the more I saw you grow, the more I was like, wow. And I was like, how long will he continue doing these things and all? Do you think you will be able to take up a regular job having done this kind of very independent work with a lot of focus as well as going through all the roller coaster of a startup life? Do you think you
Mhm.
would take up a big corporate job? You think so?
Um, I think it would depend on the need and the kind of role that I would have to play over there. I don't see anything bad in either of the journeys. Both have their own, good sides and bad sides. I have, while raising funds for this, I also worked as a consultant at one of the major healthcare companies, and that was more or less like a job. And I had a lot of fun, made uh, very good friends, colleagues that I worked with. So it has its own charm. Whereas at that time, my startup journey was very lonely on the other side. There was not a team, and I really looked forward to meeting those people. It was a good mental enrichment for me. So I do see that jobs also have a very good um, benefit to them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've gone back and forth many times, but some people like one or the other. So, yeah, I've seen
Yes,
you
yes,
do that.
yes,
What about COVID-19? I mean, with the pandemic, a lot of things have changed for a lot of
yes.
people. How has your life changed, and how has your journey shifted from what
Hmm.
you were doing earlier?
Right, right. Okay. Um, one thing that had changed for a lot of people, and it did not change for me, was work from home. I had mostly been working remotely because I had been uh, at, in different cities at different times to interact with customers or so. The major change that happened was that traveling got restricted. So I was, as someone who was doing sales at one point in time about my product, I moved it to my LinkedIn and started processing orders there. And it did bring a delay, but I think as the world is, it also brought in a perspective that when times change, one has to be flexible and adaptable to make sure that the business keeps running and the employees do get their salaries. And um, I think everyone has had their own um, change of perspectives because of COVID-19. I also took this as an opportunity to um, work with the government of Gujarat in with the disaster control, the Center for Disaster Control and Disaster Management. Sorry, and we tried implementing a few ideas with them. So it was a new experience. I think it freed up some time in order to experiment and do new things. Uh, so that had been the positive side of looking at it.
And do you have any ideas or suggestions for people who may want to do the path you took is very rare. Even at the IITs, even in the IIMs, the more comfortable path is to take up a job, get some what
Hmm.
they call experience. And you did that kind of hand in hand. You did the
Hmm. Hmm.
consulting opportunities and all that. But I was always on the ball on doing something innovative on your own or with people. Do you
Right.
have any recommendations on how people can start doing those things?
Okay. Um, so, firstly, I would want people to ask themselves about what their priority is, what really matters to them. For a lot of people, it is about um, you know it is about making money. There are a lot of responsibilities related to that, and I have been very fortunate that my family has been in a position where I was not required to do a traditional job and bring funds home every month. So that was a big flexibility for myself, and that allowed me to pursue the journey of product design and raising funds and so on. So I think different ideas have different uh, effects. Some ideas are good in terms of social impact. Some ideas are good in terms of financial impact. So it is really important for an entrepreneur to evaluate ideas according to their own metrics, they will be the first person to invest in that idea. So the way, say, a venture capitalist would invest in an idea or in a team to get what they need, which is a financial return. Um, as an entrepreneur, you also have to be a savvy investor in understanding whether this will give you the return that you want. Either it could be emotional, social, financial, it could be anything, but you really need to ask yourself that. And once you figure out that, okay, this is what I want, then it is best to stay the course and make sure that you get the return at the end of that.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, what you're talking about is almost like a portfolio approach, being clear about your goals. Where do you see yourself going next in terms of course, we don't yet know how long the pandemic is going to be, but where do you
Yes.
see yourself in terms of what the possibilities are in front of you?
Okay. Possibilities, again, as if I look at a portfolio approach, with the experience that I have gained, it has started, I started receiving communication, inward communication from people who have been working in the medical devices space. There are doctors who want to make their own products, and there are such opportunities which are coming in now. And I also see that I have become someone who has developed a side of defining strategy for medical device products. So I can see that I can play a good role in advising how innovation can be done. In fact, I am now trying to see that the department that I studied at, in the Department of Engineering Design at IIT-Madras, I am now serving as a member on their department advisory committee to,
Wow.
and I'm trying to see if I can remove some of the obstacles that I tackled from the path of future students who are going to study there. And if I can make some contribution to the ecosystem um, that has so many potential students coming up with good ideas, with enthusiasm about startups. In fact, then that would be a big service to it would be a big payback to the system that I have leveraged. And as far as my uh, work as a person is concerned, I would want to develop in um, develop better insights towards business development, and taking up entrepreneurship in the next step of the journey as well, to see to evaluate more ideas which have a better business potential than the current one. Then that would be the direction that I would eventually want to go towards.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy that I was able to relive my youth through you in the sense that the kind of things that I used to go through. I started a little later. I started around the age of 30, getting into startup ideas. And then I
Right.
had a child, I had a daughter soon after that. So you started
Right.
much earlier, which is great. Um, but that's one of the reasons I was asking. As you go further, there are these family responsibilities and or wanting
Yes.
to raise a family and all the equations start changing, isn't it? So
Absolutely.
where do you see yourself going from balancing the work life and personal goals versus career goals? Have you thought about it, or are you just going to let it allow it to happen?
I don't have an answer to that. I've definitely been pondering upon that. In fact, I should be the one asking you a question about this. How did you manage to do that?
Well, it was easier. I
Yeah.
was married to somebody who was financially supporting me. So sometimes I call her my angel capitalist. So it is a lot easier to have a working spouse, and then later both of us jumped into one startup together,
Yeah.
or rather we started it together. Then we had to
Right.
worry more about money, but until then I never had to worry
Yes.
about money. So
Yes.
the first two startups are in electronics. It was much easier. But when we both
Yes.
jumped in, like 4 feet together, not just with both feet, but
Yes.
both of
Yes.
us,
All the four
then we had to worry
food.
about the money much
Yes.
more. But by that time, we had both experienced startups, she as well as I. And you know, a point comes when you're like itching to do something, and they're like, to hell with the risk, let's just jump in.
Yes,
And
yes,
I don't think we would have done it if we hadn't thought that way, you know.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
And
but
I think how a lot of people see entrepreneurs see risk in a different way. I think I see it as a journey or as an adventure. Like many people want to go to hill stations but do not want to go for a trek because it is risky. But I
yeah,
don't see it that way. I see it as something that I would want to do, and then I am also willing to deal with the consequences. So I think when we have a partner or a family, if they are also willing to accept the consequences, then it should be okay.
yeah, yeah. And in fact, I've been also watching your brother's journey, Sahaj, who is on a
Yes,
quite a different path.
yes,
Started off with an oil company and then got into what do you call on the
education.
social venture and doing really
Yes,
amazing things. And
yes.
at this point, what motivates you? Is it like making a product? Is it the name or the fame or the money? Or is it the contribution to society? Which of these factors or other factors do you consider when you're looking at what to do next?
Okay. Um, I think making a contribution to society happens at every stage, even if you are working uh, in a company or a corporate, or if you are working in a charity or at a startup, if you're building products. Everybody has a different cycle in which their payment happens in terms of their social impact. So um, I would want to keep that aside for now, because I
Uh-huh.
think we'll only be able to be financially sustainable if we are doing work that is relevant to the society, and we have to find the right person to pitch it to in order to get funds for that. So it could be a corporate social responsibility fund, it could be the government, it could be a private person, it could be anybody. So finding the right customer for every idea is important. So if we are selling a skill, then a corporate could be our customer. So essentially, it is all a trade. So I would want to balance my work with, firstly, my goal in the next few years would be to build a stable finance for myself, so that I don't feel anxious about it at all points. uh, so that is one of the goals. And the best way, if I really am able to find a good idea, I am evaluating a few. If they seem to be worthy, if I'm able to find and convince a few people around that and build some credibility in that idea, then it could be one of the, it could be a next venture for me. And if nothing works out, then I'll probably take up a job. But I know that finances have become more serious. I become more serious about finances than before now.
I like that. I like that. If nothing works out, then I'll take up a job or maybe go to graduate school. Whereas
Yes,
often it's the other way around. If I can't find a job, then I'll figure out what to do. But
right, right.
you know, given where we stand as a nation in India,
Yes,
there are not that many people who want to take the risk of either starting a company or especially something based on innovation.
right,
Um, do you see the culture changing in your generation? I know in my generation, people didn't take that much risk. There were very few, those who could
right.
afford it in a big way, those who had big financial backing.
Hmm, hmm.
Things seem to be going more in the entrepreneurial direction now. What do you see happening
Yes,
in your generation?
yes. I think the older generation, which has made good amount of money in terms of their own, with their own businesses or their own jobs, they are now looking for avenues to invest in. And I think mutual funds and fixed deposits have become a thing of. I mean, it is not as um, glamorous as it used to be before. So a lot of people are also now taking up more risk with some amount of their earnings, and that is where our generation has benefited. So more and more students are coming up with startup ideas, and there is an ecosystem which is also building. Bangalore is a very good example where there are a lot of funds. People are coming up as a group of angel funds and investors. They are helping new startups grow. So it is definitely picking up, and I have been getting emails and messages from students who have just joined IIT Madras in my department. They somehow found my profile and found out that this person is doing a startup, and they tell me that, hey Anand, I'm joining this college now, and I want to become an entrepreneur in later on. I want to start my own startup. Do you think this department is good for that?
Wow, the
So
freshers before even selecting the
yes,
branch of,
yes,
that's amazing. That was
yes,
unheard of,
yes,
at least at
yes,
my time, 30 plus years ago.
yes.
That's
And even
amazing.
universities are now publicizing that, because that seems to be something that people really want. Parents also find it to be good, I think, to some extent. Uh, so it is not just the education; it is also about the patents that you make. It's about the startups that come out, and I think it helps the ecosystem in general.
That to me, that's a very, very encouraging sign that
Yes,
people are thinking about where to go to innovate, where to go to
yes,
start a business. I know at the master's level that's common. There are people who do MBAs in family managed businesses and things like that.
yes,
It's very
hmm.
encouraging to see teenagers now taking
Yes,
on those steps.
yes,
And again, I'm glad that I'm talking to you because in the middle of the pandemic, when there seems to be so little hope, a lot of people are going through difficulties, especially in your generation.
right.
People can't graduate, people cannot go abroad for education, even
Hmm.
interstate travel is restricted.
Yes,
And I feel entrepreneurship can be a good, at least an alternative.
yes, yes,
And it's good if somebody wants to contact you, we'll give, hopefully you'll be able to give some pointers how they can reach you, right?
definitely. Yeah,
And yeah, to all people out there, there is a huge difference. I would say there's a big shortage of jobs today. It has been like that for a while. In India, definitely, between the number of jobs available and the number of college graduates or even skilled, people. And the only way I see out is to innovate, to do things
yes,
and to maybe even manufacture things or really do things on your own with support. Looks like the government is becoming more and more supportive. There are many schemes, the CSR money available. There's also some amount of venture money, some amount of government or bank debt available. It keeps varying by the, by the economy, but it's there. It's definitely there, and there is commitment to start new things. So,
yes.
any other things that we have left out? Any other things you want to share? So it can be useful to people who are interested in starting companies.
A lot of I have seen a trend in the West that people have started picking up the gig economy, and many people are outsourcing their skills um, on platforms like Upwork or um, jobs have become one source of income, and people use the rest of their time to build something that they would eventually want to switch to. Um, so I think after the coronavirus pandemic, now that it has happened and people have started working remotely, that could be a, a rising trend. And if that kind of flexibility is given to, if it is available, then it might be easier to find time for your own ventures. So I think it is just about determining and then, setting a goal and then following it through.
Wonderful. Really, I'm happy we talked about these things. And yeah, please stay in touch. And also for people out there, if you need to get more information from me or from Anand, we will give you our pointers on how to find us. And
Sure.
again, in the midst of all these challenges, I see a lot of potential new ventures and new things happening. And I know Anand is also looking into some of these things that are related to the pandemic, related to healthcare, related to different ways of approaching these challenges. So good luck and please stay in touch.
Thank you, Shankar.
Thank you.